2019 is a year where I saw more movies in theaters than any other year in my life. I've seen movies I probably would have never touched or had access to, but fortunately I found ways to by seeking out locations that play them. Hopefully this list can encourage you to check out these, as they all have my recommendation, and most of these should be out to rent or in theaters by now. It has been a pretty great year for cinema, so let's jump right in. Here's 19 films you should see from 2019.
Why so happy?
Things are changing. The Allies have taken Italy, France will be next, and soon the war will be over.
God damn it!
If you're interested in watching a dark satire of one of the most infamous periods in history, Jojo Rabbit is one to check out. It follows a young and impressionable German boy whose imaginary friend is Hitler. While that may sound crazy at first, Jojo has his worldview challenged when he finds a Jewish girl in his attic. It's a real off-the-wall movie, but one that does contain a real heart in the middle of all the edgy humor sprinkled about. It's one that I had a lot of fun watching, and one that I think even people opposed to the idea of this movie would enjoy. Check this one out, as it's still playing in theaters at the time of this video's release. Produced by James Cameron, who has made some of the highest grossing movies of all time, rip Avatar, Alita is a well-made adaptation of the anime with the same name. The action scenes and the special effects are all very fluid and top-notch. The story follows a robot who was found in a scrapyard and rebuilt by a doctor. She later finds out more about her past life and learns about the environment around her. While the story for this one is not as fleshed out as I'd hope it'd be, and certain aspects of characters never really get explored, I still think this is one of the better sci-fi movies I've seen in a while due to its stunning presentation. I'm curious to see what a sequel could do for the story, hopefully one that does not feel like it's summarizing scenes from the source material and instead plays them out at certain parts. Guillermo del Toro produces this faithful adaptation of the book series of the same name. Kids in a small town open a book obtained from a haunted house, and the stories then come to life, spawning these creepy illustrations from them. While this may sound like Goosebumps, this one actually goes through with its scares instead of acting like a Jumanji clone. It's a fun and thrilling ride, and one I hope to revisit in the future. I have a review out for it, if you want to go see that one, go to it. Link is in the description.
You gonna be the next Iron Man now?
Well, no, I don't have time. I'm too busy doing your jobs.
What?
I'm kidding. Look, keep up the good work.
What can I say? If you like Spider-Man, you'll like this one. It's more the same from Homecoming, but I'd say it's a tad better due to a great addition played by Jake Gyllenhaal.
We have to go to a party tonight.
What?
Let's go to Nick's party.
Are you kidding? No way.
We only have one night left to have studied and partied in high school. Otherwise, we're just gonna be the girls that missed out.
This is one that I saw on an advanced screening and was hesitant to even make the drive out to see it, but I'm glad I did. This is a fun little movie that has more creativity and humor than I thought it would. It has the same story as the movie Superbad, but the characters in this one stand on their own 2 feet and give this movie personality that is geared towards a more modern audience. Give this one a watch if you want a nice teen movie. That's all I can really say.
I'd like to purchase some of your finest beer, please.
In a time where it feels like stomaching another origin of a superhero would be overwhelming, here comes Shazam. I'm glad this one exists, as it's a superhero movie that just wants to have fun and barely feels tied to any cinematic universe that is pretty much law for every one of these type of movies nowadays. Sadly, that aspect of being tied to a cinematic universe affects my enjoyment for a good amount of Marvel movies, and it feels like a ball and chain is put around any personality a director could throw in for any of these movies. Imagine if Sam Raimi was to direct the newest Spider-Man movies and not being allowed to throw any of his flares like the dolly zooms or anything like that. Anyways, while Shazam might not be having a directorial flair anywhere, this is one that was just pure fun and it wasn't worried about setting up anything to further a universe. The movie was focused on giving the viewer a great time, and the chemistry between all the characters was great alongside the humor thrown in. This felt like a hero movie that was in its own little corner of the world, and I hope it stays there, not joining up with like any of the Justice League. I hope more hero movies could be enjoyable as this one was. Check this one out if you just want a good dose of fun.
Hey, you take my car.
I don't even like your car. Drives like a dick.
Badger drives my T-Bird 300 miles away and ditches it. Think you'll be heading to Mexico?
No, not Mexico.
Right on, even better.
This one is solely for the fans of Breaking Bad, and if you have not seen it, I'd highly recommend you give that series a watch. It's very, very good. Anyways, El Camino is a very satisfying conclusion to the show, and I was just glad to revisit the world one last time of Breaking Bad, until I eventually just rewatched the entire show. Watch all this on Netflix. I highly doubt you'll be disappointed in any of it.
Excuse me! Sir? We're officers of the law?
You gonna run me in? I don't feel like talking. I'm distraught.
Hey, Benny, you wanna ask this guy some questions?
All right, what is this? What's this arrangement?
Mr. Drysdale.
CSI KFC?
Rian Johnson's Whodunit movie is a hilarious Starfield one that manages to take its own spin on the genre. It has an eclectic bunch of characters and always keeps the viewer engaged with its mystery. I love the details from bits of dialogue being used, as well as having some little quirks in the screenplay. I really love the leads Ana de Armas and Daniel Craig. They give really great performances, as well as the rest of the cast, really. This is probably the best movie I've seen from Rian Johnson, and it's one you'll be getting out of the theater with a huge smirk on your face.
Hey, Frank.
Skinny wants to see you. Get in the car.
I was just gonna go
Get
see
the
him.
car.
Martin Scorsese gives us another mafia movie with actors from his previous works. While a 3.5-hour runtime might divert people from this, I really think it's worth a watch. I got sucked into this main character's life and seeing the ups and downs throughout. It gets brutal, tense, and depressing by the end, but one of the things I love about this 209-minute movie is that it respects the viewer and commends them for paying attention at all the aspects and actions of every character. There are some gripes I have with the movie, with the really unconvincing de-aging effects looking straight out of Polar Express, and trying to get some action movements from actors that clearly aren't in their 40s anymore. But it's still a magnificent time. I've never actually seen Goodfellas, but I kinda wanna see it now.
That night, Sharon, her 2 house guests, and naturally Jay, all went to the West Hollywood Mexican restaurant landmark El Coyote on Beverly for dinner.
What's going on at the Dirty Movie Place?
Well, they're having a premiere.
Dirty movies have premieres?
Yeah, they're fun.
Tarantino's 9th film follows the star of Westerners along with his stunt double in 1969 Hollywood. While this movie doesn't really have a whole lot of a story, it's just captivating following these 2 characters and watching them doing on-set acting as well as their lives in general. This whole movie just feels like a love letter to everything in Los Angeles. While it could be shorter, as I don't see a purpose of having Margot Robbie's Sharon Tate here, I like this one enough to where I saw it in theaters twice in the same week. Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio play these characters so well that I'd like to see them get Oscar nods, specifically Brad Pitt. Almost all the scenes he was in were so entertaining and satisfying to watch. It will not be for everybody, as I know people who find this one boring, but if you can find yourself being sucked into this time period and entertained by these characters, you will enjoy this movie. I mean, come on, it's Quinty. Todd Phillips, director of the Hangover movies, has stepped away from comedy and has directed a real different comic book movie. This standalone origin story for the Joker is one that explores the character in ways that are really unique and is a totally different take on the character altogether. Carving out its own path for the traits of this version of the Joker and the series of events leading up to the inevitable transformation makes this a very entertaining character study. That's all, a character study instead of acting like this movie is going to cause any harm in the real world. Joaquin Phoenix acts his heart out in this one, and there's not one scene that goes by without him present. Other than the performance, I love the set designs, the costumes, and the score of the movie is incredible, and hearing that they pre-recorded it before they shot the movie is really interesting to hear. I don't think this one had a story that should be labeled a masterpiece, but for how well it's made and the fantastic performance in it, I believe this one should be watched if you are interested in seeing a different type of adaptation of a comic book character. I'm happy that it broke $1 billion and even astonished that it managed to reach that with no Chinese revenue whatsoever. Hopefully it can open more doors for similar types of movies to be made and more R-rated movies to be created the way directors and writers want them to, instead of worrying about capturing a certain audience overseas.
If you will go down and suck Cunningham's dick, who's the head of customs, and get him to clear all of the containers with water, you will save this festival. And I literally drove home, took a shower, I drank some mouthwash. I'm like, oh my gosh, and I got into my car to drive across the island to take one for the team.
This documentary about the Fire Festival fiasco that happened in 2017 is a deep dive look into how this festival was created, promoted, and all the parties affected leading up to its starting date. For those of you who don't know what happened and would like a little rundown before watching this doc, I'd recommend Internet Historian's video on this event. The Fire Festival is notorious for being a huge train wreck where they marketed a luxurious festival in the Bahamas. Seeing how the power of social media both created and destroyed this event, along with the reputation of the company, was fascinating. The reason this is so high on my list is because I felt this documentary really explored everything it needed to and answered all the questions I had about this event. I don't exactly have a keen sense on who's the biggest influencers on social media sites, and before watching this I definitely underestimated the power that social media has with advertising stuff. I'd recommend watching this just to see how it all unfolds for this festival, as it is eye-opening and a great example of what not to do in marketing and business. This is available on Netflix, and if you are even more interested on the subject matter after that, Hulu also has their own documentary, but I haven't seen that one, so I really can't recommend it.
I'm gonna go for a walk.
I want to.
So, no, I'm gonna... No. Don't think that, you're fine.
This newest film by Ari Aster, director of last year's Hereditary, is about a group of graduate students who travel to Sweden to visit a festival held there. After spending several days there, things happen that sour the experience and reveal sinister intentions. This is definitely a movie that will not appeal to everybody and will leave you feeling ill towards the end. I had a real sense of dread leaving the theater to the point where I didn't want to eat or drink anything for a while after exiting it. However, that's this movie's intent and it pulls it off effectively. It works so well due to having a main character that is barely hanging on to her own sanity, being stuck in an insignificant relationship, suffering from a tragedy, and being unwanted by the group that she traveled with. Florence Pugh definitely sells this character, and there is not one moment of unbelievability in her performance. This movie has stuck with me ever since I saw it in early July, and while I wouldn't consider it a straight-up horror movie, it definitely has some really graphic imagery. I absolutely fell in love with the cinematography and setting of this movie, as all of it happens in what you think is a peaceful and serene place that's in broad daylight. This feeling of absolute dread this movie gives off is one that I haven't been able to feel in any other movie except for this one and Hereditary. When a movie is able to make me feel something and doesn't hold back on going for these emotions with weird humor in between or ending scenes too soon, it's something to commend even if these emotions aren't pleasant. There's also so much to gain and dissect on multiple watches that I still have to go out, buy it, and come back to see any symbolism or character cues I didn't pick up on yet. I'd say give this one a watch if you're looking for a thrilling experience.
Buds, dudes, friends.
Buds, dudes, friends, handshake. All right, dude. Let's go, hurry up. All right, 3 of those, 4 of those. One of those. Now what? Like that.
Yeah.
Only when special shit happens though.
The Peanut Butter Falcon is a movie I can recommend to everybody no matter what. It's a lighthearted adventure starring Shia LaBeouf, Dakota Johnson, and first-timer Zach Gottsagen. The story follows a boy with Down syndrome escaping his nursing home to try and venture to a wrestling school to meet his idol. Along the way, he meets up with a man named Tyler who goes along with him, exploring, bonding, and being free. It has a Huckleberry Finn vibe to it, and it's one movie that just exudes a good feeling the whole way through. The main driving force would be our protagonist Zach, who has a real charm and charisma, finally experiencing the world for himself, with Tyler showing him more along the way. Zach Gottsagen and Shia LaBeouf made a great duo in this movie, and I had a huge smile on my face the whole movie. Peanut Butter Falcon offers a message of acceptance and not letting any disabilities or any force stopping you from living life to the fullest and following your dreams. It never once felt like it was artificial or disrespectful throughout the whole movie, and thanks to its great script and cast, this is definitely one of the best movies of the year. Please find time to see this one, as it truly is one of the most feel-good movies of the year, possibly the decade.
They want to show the world it's no use fighting. Look, everybody, even he can't crack the maze, and he's helped build it. The system is rigged. They want us to think it'll protect us, but that's a lie. We protect us. We do. Nobody else.
Based on true events, Dark Waters is the story of a defense attorney investigating troubles from his hometown about environmental hazards happening that affect animals and humans in the area. It expands to become a larger issue, tackling the company behind this and finding out there is a certain chemical in the water turning the frickin' humans dead. This one felt like a real-life horror movie that you wanted to see end so fast, with them jumping through the years of when the events are occurring up until the last scene. This is definitely a story that needed to be told, and one that I hope everybody sees to be informed about how much companies like this can get away with and will get away with, no matter the cost, and how one person could step in and keep fighting for the people. Mark Ruffalo does a real great job playing Rob Bilott, the real-life attorney, and gets the mannerisms down to a T, all the way to that little pursed lip on one side of the face. There will not be a moment you will find uninteresting in this movie, as you will just keep rooting for this attorney to have justice delivered. This is definitely one movie that will affect you after seeing it and might keep you up a little bit at night like it did for me. Definitely give this one a watch as it's still in theaters.
Garnett points and rebounds. What do you know?
I don't know. I just know.
Well, I'll tell you what I know. It's the dumbest fucking bet I ever heard of.
I disagree.
The Safdie brothers, director of Good Time, have made a really exhilarating movie that follows a jewelry shop owner named Howie, played by Adam Sandler. Howie is a greedy, conniving, and just overall not a good person, but you can somehow root for him. You want to see things go right for him. There is something really charismatic about this character, but he is overall unlikable. I don't think any other person but Adam Sandler could play this role well, as we'd either get too annoyed or too sympathetic with anyone else. This movie overall is very loud, with characters talking over one another, the synth music playing over top a hefty amount of scenes, and other noises appearing in everyday New York. It helps set the environment we as viewers will be thrusted in as always on and stress-inducing if there are problems appearing. Throughout the whole movie, the cinematography is usually up-close shots of the characters with little to no room to eat up what's going on in the background. It makes it feel very claustrophobic, adding on to that unpleasantness of the volume. It gives us a feeling like we're always on our toes rather than just sitting and watching. I was really drawn into this thing to the point where all outside forces just vanished, as I felt like I was a fly on the wall of Howie and his hectic life. Note that this is not a typical Adam Sandler movie and will throw off anybody expecting that. He plays a character that I haven't seen him play before. It's honestly one of, if not the best performance I've seen from him, and I hope he takes on more dramatic roles like this, hopefully in the near future. Give this one a watch as it's in theaters right now. This is one that will attract some, but drive away some. As for me, I've already seen it twice and I wouldn't mind seeing it a third time.
I loved you and I didn't want to lose you, but I'm in my 20s. And I didn't want to lose that too, and I kind of did. And you wanted so much, so fast. I didn't even want to get married. Frick it! There's so much I didn't do.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Rarely does any movie ever make me tear up, but this one managed to do that. Almost did it twice, in fact. Marriage Story follows Charlie and Nicole, played by Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, in the hardships of divorcing with all the aspects of their life. It is incredibly depressing, but it does have moments of humor woven in between. Even if you are somebody who has never been close to getting married like me, you can feel the pain of this couple, Charlie and Nicole, as they try to navigate through this rough patch in their life. This is a couple you'll deeply care about, and everything is well developed to the point where you can understand both parties in this divorce, even if you lean towards one more than the other. Marriage Story will take you on a roller coaster of emotions that will not stop until the credits roll. This is honestly the best drama of the year, and it shouldn't be missed even if it's only on Netflix. With lead performances like this, it's going to be hard to choose who will come out on top this year.
아 잠깐. 제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고. 과선배는 김치모 그는 네 사촌.
Parasite is a foreign film by Bong Joon-ho. Some might know him as the director of Snowpiercer or Okja. It's a South Korean film that follows a lower-class family that is barely making ends meet, getting a taste of the high life, when the son gets a job as an English tutor for an upper-class family's daughter. Parasite dives into class struggle very quickly as we see how run down the Kim family's place is as they scavenge to find a good spot to connect to Wi-Fi or leaving the windows open just to get free fumigation to exterminate some stink bugs. Then there is the Park family, who is living in a hilltop mansion that's very secluded and clean. As the movie goes on, there is so much symbolism to pick up on, from certain props to character cues or gestures. Parasite is a movie where you can try to predict what is going to happen, but you'll be wrong every time. It takes turns that you would have never thought of, and then you think back at some peculiar moments in the movie, and it starts to click why certain things happened. Quite frankly, when the climax happened, my jaw dropped. This movie is filmed to the brim of surprises and suspense that I was never once bored or unimpressed with it. There's not a moment in this movie that feels wasted on anything trivial or not incorporated later on for other scenes. The director clearly has a lot of things in here that the viewer will pick up on multiple watches to help better understand more of the symbolisms, metaphors, and certain things that happen. This movie was exhilarating, and some tonal shifts throughout the acts are going to keep you engaged and wondering what's coming next. Please don't disregard this one just because you'll have to use subtitles, as it's an amazing movie that shouldn't be overlooked just because of a language barrier.
Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow! Hark! Hark! Triton! Hark! Bellow! Bid our father, the Sea King, rise from the depths full foul in his fury, black waves teeming with salt foam.
to smother this young mouth with pungent slime, to choke ye, engorging your organs till ye turn blue and bloated with bilge and brine and can scream no more.
Once in a blue moon, there is something that comes around and just sticks with you for a while. You try and decipher everything on that first watch, and while some parts you can, other times there might be several meanings that can be pinned to certain scenes that will require another watch, possibly a lot of viewings. Sometimes you may think you have the whole thing figured out, but you might be way off. You feel a huge purpose on every scene, but you don't know if you could ever figure out the true purpose, and even if the person who made it told you, you'd think differently about it regardless. That's The Lighthouse. A story of two lighthouse keepers played by Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe maintaining a lighthouse in the 1800s. As time goes on being on this island, events and visions occur that make these men fight to keep their sanity. I really don't want to say too much about this movie plot-wise, as it's really unlike anything I've seen. The movie is shot in black and white with a 1.19 by 1 aspect ratio, and I don't see how they do it any other way, as it fit perfectly given the location and time period this film is set in. You really get a sense of the atmosphere in this movie right away with this presentation, seeing the shots of the cliffside all while hearing the waves roll up, seagulls squawking, and the roaring engine coming from the lighthouse. The performances in this are impeccable. I believe Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson deserve to be nominated, and I think Willem will get the Oscar for a supporting role. The dialogue was delivered in such an authentic way, and I might even go back with subtitles on just to make sure I picked up on everything they said clearly. Not that it wasn't inaudible, but just the way they talk uses an older English dialect that isn't always the easiest to decipher. They pull off these characters so well that I forgot who was playing them and just wanted to refer them to their character names throughout the whole entire movie. The Lighthouse is an astonishing piece of cinema that I believe will be talked about years from now like The Shining. I love a sense of ambiguity in my movies, and when there's a movie that comes around like The Lighthouse where I feel like it's a puzzle that may never truly get solved or have multiple solutions to it, it's always fun to attempt to form your own solutions to show other people and in turn hear theirs, just to see how you're thinking about the movie. I could gush over this movie all day, but I'll leave this by saying it's my favorite movie of 2019. Check this one out when it comes on DVD next week and experience it for yourself if it looks like something you'd be interested in. Thank you guys so much for watching. Tell me what your favorite movie of the year is in the comments, and I'll possibly tell you how good your opinion is. Did you like my opinions on this list? If you did, be sure to smack that like button and subscribe if you want to see more videos. Happy New Year!